What's up everyone, welcome back. I'm here with David Silk for another video about whitewater, swimming in whitewater and whitewater safety. Just before we get started, I want to be clear that although this video might be useful for some people, you should definitely go as soon as you can on a whitewater safety and rescue course. Something like SRT, like Swiftwater Rescue Technician, whitewater safety and rescue. Get some training, get some experience. There's no amount of videos you can watch that are going to make up for some safe, well-managed experience in this area. So that's thing number one to think about. What we're talking about this video is using a throw bag to help you rescue a swimmer who is away from shore, and so you can pull them back in. We're going to talk about some safe practices, some ways to use it, and just a few other things to be aware of, some tips and tricks for using your throw bag most effectively. First off, what is a throw bag? Well, a throw bag is literally just a bag of rope that you throw. So obviously the name, pretty self-explanatory, but how you use it might need a little more nuance than just its obvious name. So if somebody, like in this video you're seeing right now through the command of editing, if somebody in this video you can see is swimming and you are able to deploy your throw bag to save them, the first thing you're going to do is dump out a few meters of rope right next to you, or what I usually do is kind of wrap it just behind me so that I can use it in kind of a body belay situation in a second. Once I've dumped out my little bit of rope so that I've got some play to let out, I'm not going to be like right at the very end of the rope. The next thing I'm going to do is make sure I am in a good stable throwing position. So before I even think about throwing it, ideally actually before I even think about dumping a few meters out of my bag, I'm looking around on the ground all around me to find out, make sure I'm in a good place. I've got a nice wide base to throw from. Yeah, exactly. And when the person catches my rope, because I'm going to have an excellent throw obviously, I'm not going to get pulled off of my feet because you're going to be holding a lot of weight on the end of the rope, right? So I want to be prepared for that before that happens. Our number one rule when we're like thinking about rescuing people in whitewater is not to become a bigger part of the problem, right? I don't want to become another casualty. I don't want to become another person who's in danger and needs help from someone else. So I need to think carefully about that before I do anything. So that I really should have said that's step one. Really is kind of carefully consider what you're doing. And with practice, that careful consideration gets a lot quicker. But at first, it's better to be on a course and get some instruction. Someone like kind of right on your tail telling you what to do. So I've got my wide base, I've dumped out a little bit of my rope, and another key thing to mention here is that I want to make sure that I don't have like a carabiner or anything heavy or sharp attached to the outside of my throw bag. Sometimes I'll have a carabiner on here because it's like clipped into my boat, well that's how I'm holding it into my boat, but I want to make sure I'm not hucking that at someone because if it hits the person in the face, it can knock them unconscious, it can knock their teeth out. Maybe they're like me, very good looking, or like David, and incredibly good looking, and we got to protect that moneymaker. So you got to watch out. We got to make sure nothing bad on the end here. Another thing to think of, and this is kind of before we get into a rescue situation here, is about having a clean end to your rope. So sometimes when you buy a new throw bag, it's going to have like a loop knotted in the end. We want to take that out. In the case that you end up dropping your throw bag in the river and it's like floating off downstream, that loop becomes a snag hazard and it could snag under the water and maybe pull down whoever's holding onto it still. So kind of a worst case scenario situation, but you do want to be aware of it.
Or even just leave a rope floating in the river for somebody's foot to get tangled in later.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, we got to think about other people for sure, so clean line as much as possible. Got my wide base. I've dumped out a bit of rope behind me here. Now I'm ready to throw the rope to the person. Before I throw it, I want to make sure they know it's coming, right? So the first thing I'm going to do in trying to get their awareness is shout as loud as I can. Probably something like, "Run, run, run!" Or over here, I wave. Any other good ways? We could use a whistle too to attract attention. That's not a bad move. Sometimes when you're that person swimming in the water, it can be very disorientating. You get water in your ears, you're trying to breathe, you're trying to stay alive. And you might not always hear that, but you need to make sure you're trying to get eye contact with that person, at least in the water, so they know a rope's coming, right? And then I'm going to throw them the rope. Dave, a couple ways to throw. How are we going to do it? What's your favorite? How do you hold the throw bag?
So I usually hold it kind of like this, almost like you'd hold a football type of deal, or an American football, that is. You know, like to kind of hold it like that. We've got a couple options. You can do a nice slow underhand toss, or we've got a nice overhand, again, like the American football style, a little bit more aggressive, add some distance in there. You can really nail someone in the head if you're looking for it. Good option if you're really trying to get it far. Yeah.
What's the best way to throw it, do you think? Kind of a trick question, right? It varies a lot person to person. Yeah. I really like to just peg people as hard as I can, like overhand, aim at the face. That's like my target. But depending on your throwing style and what you prefer, you might actually have a much better throw, a more accurate throw if you're throwing from the underhand position. So you're going to need to practice a little bit, practice at home, practice in a field, practice with a friend, practice with a target, practice with someone walking around trying to catch it for you, and find which throwing style works best for you. As David outlined, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but you need to find out what's going to work best for you. And you can get there by doing some simple at-home practice, right? Just keep the rope in the bag, practice throwing it, dump some rope out, practice throwing it, see where you can be most accurate. That's the best way for you, right? So, we've thrown our throwbag. Wow, this has been a lengthy explanation. We've thrown our throwbag.
It's out of the bag. Cat's out of the bag.
I've got my rope in two hands. Hopefully I'm body belayed so that the rope's paying out on my downstream side. I thought about this ahead of time. If it was paying out the other way, that would obviously not be ideal, right? Because now it's going to be like kind of like cutting you up in half.
You don't want that.
You don't want that. Not ideal. So hopefully I'm planned ahead, and I'm in that like kind of body belay position right there. Clean lines, and I've just got the rope sitting in kind of firmly, thumbs up, palm of my hand right now.
Yep.
David, is it a good idea if I wrap that rope up? I'm really pulling hard. Should I wrap the rope around my hand as I'm pulling in?
You know, Seth, I'm going to say if you enjoy the current amount of fingers you have, it's not a good idea, no.
It's not a good idea.
No.
Because the rope can constrict, right? So now I'm putting a lot of pressure on my knuckles, break fingers this way. It's not ideal. Keep that rope open in your hand. Once the person in the water receives it, you can pendulum swing them in, you can reel them in like a big fish, or you can stand up and walk them into the eddy depending on where you are. It's more of a dynamic belay situation. Dave, if you're in the water, what's the best way to receive a throwbag from someone?
I like to kind of grab the rope, putting it over my shoulder, over my chest, and then I'm laying on my back, letting my head almost create an air pocket where I can breathe. We're trying to avoid grabbing onto it, putting our face up to the water, and kind of getting waterboarded along as we get pulled back in. You don't want to do that. Yeah, on the back, rope nice and over the shoulder. Again, really important, not tangling it around yourself, right? When we're in the water, we want to avoid ropes wrapped around our bodies for obvious reasons. So nice over the shoulder, boom.
In a future video, we might talk about rethrows, second throws, and throwing coils, which is where you're going to, you know, if you don't throw accurately the first time, you're going to be able to take a bunch of rope in your hand and pay it out to save someone. But this video has already gone kind of longer than I thought it was going to, so we're not going to, we'll move that along for another time.
We're at the end of our rope.
We're at the end of our rope with this video. In terms of repacking our throwbag, there's a couple good segue clips we'll segue away to here.
So I'm using my beaner kind of like this, so the rope threads through nicely. It's got a pretty frictionless surface, so it's not rubbing on anything. Keeps the rope nice and new. And if it tries to ball up like that, it's making sure it doesn't actually come into the bag in big clumps, stay knotted in the bag, and kind of tie the rope up when it's getting thrown, which is something you don't want.
Another little repacking strategy here, just like rope right over my shoulder. So another option, Dave showed the carabiner on your life jacket, which is a good move. This way I just take a few handfuls and every now and then jam it in there to make sure that when I throw the rope it's going to pay out properly and not be a big kind of bird's nest flying in the air, falling short. You know, I call those hopes and dreams throws, where you throw it and then you just see all your hopes and dreams just disappear. Alright, this has been Seth and David talking about whitewater safety, about throwbags, when to use them, how to use them. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them as much as I can. I'm sure we've missed some stuff, and I'm sure we'll end up doing a follow-up video to this. Mostly because it's been a lot of fun to hang out, I think. So, yeah, we like doing it. I'm going to probably do another one because I know we missed a lot of stuff. But like David said, we're kind of at the end of our rope with this one. You could say we're frayed.
Wow. Where'd you come up with that one, Seth?
You could say we're getting frayed and tired here.
Frayed not, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Alright, peace.